Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential freedom through land investing, real estate investing, and entrepreneurship. Hey everyone, this is episode 96 of the Real Estate Investing Podcast discussing, does the BRRRR strategy still work? I'm your host, Daniel Apke, joined again by my brother and business partner, Ron Apke. Before we get into the show, let's go over a question from one of our featured members. The question is, I got through your land flipping course a few months ago and have about 5 deals under my belt. I want to start to devote some of my time to a niche. Do you have a niche, or do you suggest for someone at my experience level to get into this?
That's a really good question. And I know we've said it in past podcasts, like let's get some deals under your belt before. So I'm sure they listen to that. I say niche, you say niche. This kind of got in my head a little bit, Dan.
I think I go back and forth with what I say.
But yeah, I think I'm trying to think is if there's something excuse me, if there's something specific that I would suggest for someone who's got 5 deals under their belt. I don't think subdividing probably yet is something I would maybe suggest. I think the main niche is getting more, just learning more about your market that you're in, and maybe resending. Like you could resend a mailer. Not that that's a niche. I wouldn't really suggest getting into landlocked things as well. So I don't know, Dan. I just think they're doing the right things right now. I think some deals may fall into your lap that you're like, wow, I could do this, or wow, this is a landlocked property and I can easily get an easement for this if I make a few phone calls. So those might fall into your lap. But as far as targeting something, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of different routes you can go with this, I think, Ron, but I wouldn't force a niche necessarily in your situation with doing 5 deals. Hopefully one falls in your plate. I like the location thing that Ron said. Just hyper focus a certain location, build great relationships there. Maybe get a buyer's list there, resend mail in the same area, resend different acreages. Really learn an area because it becomes so easy when you know that area, I think, Ron. But that's all I
Yeah.
have to add. Let's get into the show. Does the BRRRR strategy still work? Ron, first we're going to talk about what is the BRRRR strategy. This is a general real estate topic here.
Yeah, I like this not getting away from land completely, but talking a little bit more about that side of our business, what we do. And Burr obviously is something that was around way before us doing it, and I'm sure it's been happening for 100 years accidentally, but I don't know when the actual strategy was made. But what it is, it's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. So essentially, what you're doing is buying a rental property, buying a house, whatever it is, buying a multifamily property, buying it, rehabbing it, renting it out. And then what you're doing, you're getting your money out essentially. So when you rehabbed it, you're making it worth more. So when you refinance it, you can get pretty much all of your money out. Ideally, that is the situation. And then repeating. So ideally, you're going to own that property still when you refinance it. Hopefully, you renting it out is going to get you cash flowing every month. And then repeating that and doing it over and over is the mindset. Um, did I touch everything on there, Dan?
I think so. The whole strategy with the BRRRR method is buying you want to buy under market value so you can have more wiggle room with the refinance and get all your cash out ideally. So you're buying at, you know, 80, 90%, whatever that is, and then that gives you equity right away, and then you rehab it so then your 80% becomes 150% of the money you put in, and then you have 70% you can take out, or whatever that math works out to, and whatever your situation is. I think that's the main thing with the BRRRR strategy, Ron.
Yeah, we've never done it intentionally. We've never done the refinancing part because I don't really like having my uh, LTV that high where we're at 80% or just keeping it there after we refinance. Because then if we do have a tenant move out or whatever it is, I think it puts us in a much worse position. So that's why if we do rehab, like, yeah, great. We have some extra equity. We know that it's going to sell for more, but typically I just like keeping the equity in the property, Dan. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that in general? Like, I just think the BRRRR, it can back you up against the wall a little bit if something does go wrong.
Yeah, it's all about like we don't have rentals to really to pay our income. If you need to do this, if you're doing this full time, like you'll need to refinance to pay yourself, and that's how a lot of these people make money is in the equity and refinancing the equity out. So if you're doing it full time, I would definitely do it this way. That's the way you actually make legitimate good money. For us, we don't do it because we like the equity. It's a long term play. We're not looking at it. how much are we going to make this year or next year. We're looking at it more as a long-term investment play from the equity standpoint. So we're not looking to squeeze every single dollar out of it possible. It's more of a diversification product for us, honestly.
For sure. So yeah, that was segment one. That's what it is. Essentially buying something. It doesn't have to be under market value. Like Daniel said, that's ideal but the rehabbing is supposed to add to the property's value essentially. So when you refinance it, they look at the rehabs and now maybe bought it for 120. Now it's worth 180 or something like that. So you can get that money out. But what is segment two, Dan?
Segment two is who's this best for? So who's uses the BRRRR strategy? Who's it ideal for?
I personally think newer people, more people who are okay with risk. I think because I think there is more risk in this strategy than some other longer term plays. But if you're young or whatever, and you can do some of this hands on work, I think it's extremely valuable for you to be able to do the work where you're not hiring out, where you're willing to put in a lot of work and effort, and you need to get that money out. Let's say you have $50,000. That's a lot of money. Let's say you have $30,000 to your name. You buy a place and you do this and you can get all that money out to do it again and you have that first property still, like that's, and doing it over and over again until hopefully you don't have to necessarily do the BRRRR anymore and you can make some money by whatever more long-term safer plays maybe.
Yeah, and the BRRRR, I mean, it sounds so systematic, but you don't like when you get into it, Ron, and you get into the weeds, you don't need to refinance right away. Like you want to strategically refinance. You don't want to refinance all your properties at once necessarily. Like there's ways to mitigate the risk. So it sounds so straightforward: buy, rehab, renovate, or whatever it is, refinance. What is it again? Buy, rehab, renovate, refinance,
Rent
rent,
rehab
rent.
is renovate.
Renovate. Yeah, yeah. Okay. I knew I was
Yeah.
missing one. So yeah, you don't need to refinance right away. Like it doesn't need to be all the time in that order. Sometimes you'll buy so cheap that you don't even need to renovate either. And you can just buy it, then rent it out and refinance. So like it doesn't need to be in that order all the time. You can buy properties under market value, get them rented out, make them look a lot better without doing so much work and just uh, getting your money out within 12 months, Ron. It's that simple. It doesn't always need to be every single step.
Yeah, for sure. And right now, like think about doing this right now, like if you do it right now and you get that high interest rate, and then you're going to get a lot of equity in 2-3 years once the interest rates drop down, hopefully sub four, I would think, at least in the next 24-36 months. And you have like, you're going to have a lot more equity if you can do that now. Keep that money in the property and not refinance out at 9% or whatever it is. You're going to get kind of screwed on that end of things. So then you don't have a higher loan, because I don't see the value in refinancing at 9% unless you really have somewhere where your money needs to be, where you're going to get a 30, 40, 50% return or whatever. But you do this now and wait 24-36 months to refinance, you're going to make a ton of money getting that out, and rents are going to go up and everything's still going to be cash flowing.
Everything's going to go up. Rent's going to go up. Your property value is going to go up. So when you wait, you gain more and more equity because you already have a mortgage on it. So you're paying that down for 24 more months. The equity is rising for 24. Along with that, the rent is hopefully rising and your cash flow naturally rises as the rent rises as well. But the last segment we have, Ron, is this scalable?
Um, I don't know. I'm kind of, you go ahead, go touch base on that, Daniel. I'm kind of in between on this one. I think it's tough to really scale, but go on. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
I mean, you could do this at a high level, I think. But like I said, the more you get into it, the more you'll see it doesn't always go from B to R to R to R in that order. Like you'll buy it, hold it, and buy. I mean, if you buy, it's very scalable. You can buy 100 unit apartment complex, slowly rehab, one floor at a time, and or whatever the situation is, then move on to the next floor, and then it takes you 7 years to get, or 5 years, and then it's all done, and then you refinance out with the commercial bank and you get all this equity out. I think it is scalable, but it's not that scalable at the single family duplex quad type of. I think to scale it, you have to have big commercial properties, Ron.
Yeah, and I think the smaller ones is what people kind of go into this method for. And I think it's just you're going to eventually run into an issue. Like you have $30,000 to your name or whatever I said before, and you're trying to do this method 5 times. Something's going to happen between now and that fifth time. you're not just going to be able to do it every 6 months or something like that. I don't think that's possible with where you're trying to get your money out. So you spend 30,000 on your down payment, get it refinanced out after 6 months, you have 30,000 again. All right, do it again. I do not think that's going to happen that smoothly. Like Daniel said, there's going to be issues in there that come up. Maybe it doesn't refinance the same. Maybe you're not getting it right. Whatever it is, there is going to be something that comes up. But long term, 100%, like this is a scalable thing long term, without a doubt. But I don't think that's what a lot of people who look into this method think about.
Well, yeah, they're looking, it's a great starter strategy. The BRRRR method, like if you're going to do 10 to 20 properties a year or something, I think it's good to do. Like if you're going to stay small, but scaling it up, things are going to change. You got to go to commercial property. Same concept works, just at a higher level, Ron. You buy under market value and you start renovating units. If you have 100 units, maybe you do 20 a year or 20 every 6 months or something, and then refinance out once they're all completed. It's a major, major project, but you can scale. That's how you make real serious money. I just think for the people, you're capped if you're going to do this for single families. Like it's just going to be so much operational work, I feel like, Ron.
Yeah, and you're managing contractors. Like it's just one small project here and there, and these contractors aren't going to show up, and it's going unless you're doing all the work yourself, which is tough in itself. But yeah, it's a. I think it's definitely a difficult strategy from that perspective, without a doubt.
Do you have any last things to add? Is it scalable?
No, I think that was pretty good. I mean, it's not a bad thing. Like to invest in real estate, I'm never going to say don't invest in real estate. But if you have the thought process of trying to, if you have $20,000 or whatever, and you're trying to do this 5 times next year, and that's your big plan, I think there's better places for your $20,000. Or maybe you just buy the one property and hold it long term, make some more money in your W-2, and try to do that again next year, or do it twice next year. But yeah, short term, I think it's really difficult.
I agree. And it's just the market for undervalued properties has gotten so tight the last with the wholesaling and the flippers. It's just harder and harder to buy under market value houses right now, Ron. But it's still doable, so I don't want to say that too much. But that's all I have, guys. Do you have anything else, Ron?
No, I don't.
Perfect. Well, everyone, thank you for joining. To get started and to unlock your potential freedom, visit landinvestingonline.com/discord to join our free Discord where Ron and I and other investors are involved. Please like and subscribe to this Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, whatever you're listening on. It really means a lot. Other than that, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next episode.
Thanks, guys.